Apparently, finding out your husband has a whole other life isn't what they mean by expanding your horizons. But stumbling upon his Caribbean getaway with his soulmate and realizing you can get there first? Now that's what I call a VIP pass to chaos. There I was, Delilah Frost, 38 years old, sitting on a private balcony in a 5-star resort in Turks and Caicos, sipping a ridiculously overpriced piña colada. The kind of place where the sand is whiter than my ex-husband's alibis, and the ocean is bluer than my mood when I found out he was planning this trip with his side piece. My soon-to-be ex-husband, Lincoln Draven, 40, a man whose ego was as inflated as his corporate expense account, was due to arrive any minute, and he had no idea I was already here, specifically in the suite right next door to his pre-booked love nest. Oh, and I wasn't alone. Beside me, looking surprisingly comfortable in a linen shirt that probably cost more than my first car, sat Fox Callahan, 39. He was Magnolia Huxley's fiancé. Yes, that Magnolia Huxley, Lincoln's soulmate, the 32-year-old lifestyle influencer who believed in manifesting good vibes, and apparently other people's husbands. This wasn't just a vacation. It was a meticulously planned, deliciously cruel ambush. And I was the general. You're probably thinking, how did we get here, Delilah? Did you just snap? And the answer is, darling, yes, absolutely. But it wasn't a sudden break. It was a slow, simmering boil, like a forgotten pot of chili on the back burner of a suburban kitchen. For 12 years, I'd been Mrs. Lincoln Draven, the interior designer who made our Alpharetta mansion look like it belonged in a magazine, while he brought home the bacon and the occasional whiff of cheap perfume. We had the perfect upper-middle-class life, the gated community, the annual membership to the country club, the perfectly manicured lawn that was the envy of the HOA. We were the couple who hosted the Super Bowl parties, the ones who always brought the artisanal cheese platter to the neighborhood potluck. Or so I thought. The cracks started appearing about 8 months ago. Lincoln, a senior marketing executive, began having late nights at the office that stretched into early mornings. His phone, once a shared device for family photos, became a sacred, password-protected artifact. He started talking about finding himself and reconnecting with his inner peace, which, in my experience, usually means he found someone else's inner peace to connect with. I'd seen this movie before, just not with me in the starring role. I'm not a naive woman. My job is literally to see through facades and create something beautiful underneath. I started noticing the little things. The new cologne that smelled suspiciously like something a man buys when he's trying to impress a younger woman. The sudden interest in wellness retreats he never mentioned before. The way he'd flinch if I reached for his phone. It was all so cliché, it almost hurt. Almost. Then came the Caribbean. I was doing our taxes. Because, let's be real, he couldn't find his own socks without a GPS. And I stumbled upon a charge for 2 first-class tickets to Turks and Caicos, booked under Mr. and Mrs. Draven. My heart did that little plummeting thing, but my brain, bless its cynical heart, immediately went into detective mode. Mrs. Draven? Huh? Bold move, Lincoln. Very bold. A quick dive into his deleted emails. Thank you, Cloud Recovery. You truly are a goddess. Confirmed my suspicions. There it was. A confirmation for a luxury suite, a romantic dinner reservation, and a note about making this trip unforgettable for my Magnolia. Magnolia. The name hit me like a rogue wave. A few hours of intense social media stalking, fueled by a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc and the kind of righteous indignation only a betrayed wife can conjure, led me to Magnolia Huxley. Her Instagram was a pastel-colored shrine to self-love, avocado toast, and sponsored content. And there, buried in her tagged photos, was a man. A different man. A fiancé. Fox Callahan. He looked interesting. Not conventionally handsome like Lincoln, but with a sharp jawline, intense eyes, and a smirk that suggested he knew a thing or two about the world's absurdities. He was a tech entrepreneur, apparently, the kind of guy who probably built his own app before he was 30, and now just invests in things that make him roll his eyes. My kind of guy, actually. That's when the idea, brilliant and utterly unhinged, hit me. Why just divorce him and move on when I could orchestrate a symphony of public humiliation? Why let them have their romantic getaway when I could turn it into a reality show they never auditioned for? This wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It was about exposing the sheer audacity of their betrayal, about holding up a mirror to their self-serving delusion. It was about making them realize that karma wasn't just a concept for Instagram captions. Sometimes it booked the room next door. Contacting Fox was the next hurdle. I found his business email, surprisingly easy for a tech mogul. My email was short, to the point, and devoid of emotion. Mr. Callahan, my name is Delilah Frost. I believe your fiancé, Magnolia Huxley, is currently having an affair with my husband, Lincoln Draven. They are planning a romantic trip to Turks and Caicos next week. I have proof. I think we should talk. I expected a furious call, maybe a threat. What I got was a terse, send the proof. I sent it all. The flight details, the hotel booking, screenshots of Magnolia's gushing texts to Lincoln, even a photo of Lincoln's good luck charm, a tacky seashell necklace I'd seen Magnolia wearing in one of her Beach Babe posts. Fox called me an hour later. His voice was calm, almost unnervingly so, but I could hear the steel beneath it. I appreciate your thoroughness, Ms. Frost. This is quite a lot to process. That was an understatement. We talked for 2 hours. He was initially skeptical, then furious, then surprisingly pragmatic. He admitted Magnolia had been distant, always on her phone, talking about finding her purpose. He was a man who dealt in data, and my data was irrefutable. By the end of the call, I floated the idea. What if, I began, we don't just expose them? What if we enhance the experience? There was a long pause. Then a dry chuckle. You're saying we crash their party? Oh no, I corrected, a wicked grin spreading across my face. We host the party, right next door. And that's how Fox Callahan, the man whose fiancé was sleeping with my husband, ended up sitting next to me on a balcony in paradise, waiting for the curtain to rise on our little drama. We had arrived yesterday, checked into our suite, which, thanks to a very generous upgrade and a very persuasive bribe to the concierge, was indeed directly adjacent to Lincoln and Magnolia's. We'd even managed to get connecting doors, though we'd kept them locked. For now. The resort was a sprawling, luxurious labyrinth, but we knew their exact coordinates. We were the unexpected guests, the uninvited co-stars, ready to turn their romantic idyll into a psychological thriller. The question wasn't if they'd find out, but when, and how spectacularly they'd unravel. And I, Delilah Frost, was ready to watch the show. With popcorn, and maybe another pina colada. The first hint of their arrival came not from the sight of them, but from the distinct high-pitched giggle that could only belong to Magnolia Huxley. It drifted through the thin connecting wall, followed by Lincoln's booming, overly confident laugh, the one he reserved for clients he was trying to impress, or women he was trying to seduce. It was like a soundtrack to my impending migraine. Fox, who had been quietly scrolling through his phone, looked up, a sardonic arch to his eyebrow. Sounds like someone's having a blissful arrival, he muttered, mimicking Magnolia's breathy influencer voice. I almost choked on my drink. Oh, it's about to get a lot more blissful for them, I retorted, a wicked glint in my eye. Our strategy for the first few hours was simple. Be seen, but not too seen. We started with a leisurely lunch at the resort's main restaurant, a place Lincoln would undoubtedly frequent to show off his new woman. We snagged a table right in the middle, strategically positioned to be unavoidable. And sure enough, 20 minutes in, there they were. Lincoln, looking like a discarded GQ model, in a linen shirt that was probably too tight, and Magnolia, in a flowing sundress that screamed, I'm on a sponsored vacation. They walked in hand, radiating an aura of self-importance that made me want to throw shade with a full-sized umbrella. Lincoln spotted me first. His face, usually so composed, went through a series of rapid-fire expressions: confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, and finally, a desperate attempt at nonchalance. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, if the deer was wearing designer sunglasses and had a mistress on its arm. Magnolia, still oblivious, was busy posing for a selfie with a palm tree in the background. "Lincoln, darling, isn't this view just everything?" she cooed, oblivious to the fact that her everything was about to become a hot mess. I gave Lincoln a small, polite wave, the kind you give to a distant cousin you barely tolerate at Thanksgiving dinner. Fox, ever the master of understated drama, simply raised his glass in a silent, mocking toast. Lincoln's jaw practically hit the floor. He tugged at Magnolia's arm, whispering something urgently. She finally looked over, her smile faltering as her eyes landed on me, then on Fox. The color drained from her face faster than a cheap cocktail. It was glorious. "Delilah? Fox?" Lincoln stammered, his voice cracking. "What? What are you two doing here?" I offered my sweetest, most saccharine smile. "Oh, Lincoln, what a delightful surprise. Fox and I decided we needed a little getaway, to reconnect with our inner peace," I said, throwing his own words back at him with a perfectly timed wink at Fox. Fox, for his part, just gave a slow, deliberate nod. Magnolia looked like she'd swallowed a lemon, then a whole bag of Sour Patch Kids. "But how?" she managed, her influencer facade crumbling faster than a sandcastle in a hurricane. "Oh, the world is a small place, darling," I purred, taking a long sip of my drink. "Especially when you book the suite right next to ours. Isn't that right, Fox?" Fox leaned in, his voice a low rumble. "Couldn't be closer. We even have a connecting door if you ever feel like borrowing some sugar." The double entendre hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Lincoln and Magnolia exchanged a panicked glance, their romantic getaway officially downgraded to awkward family reunion from hell. The rest of the afternoon was a masterclass in psychological warfare. We made sure to be everywhere they were. At the pool, we, accidentally, splashed water on their towels while laughing a little too loudly. At the beach bar, Fox ordered the exact same exotic cocktail Lincoln was sipping, then made a show of critiquing it. "A bit too sweet, don't you think? Lacks a certain bite." Lincoln visibly bristled. Magnolia tried to maintain her Zen persona, but I could see her twitching. She kept pulling out her phone, probably trying to post a picture that screamed, "I'm having the best time ever, totally not being stalked by my fiancé and his mistress's wife." It was giving dumpster fire vibes, and I was here for it. Later, back in our suite, the real fun began. The walls, as it turned out, were indeed quite thin. We could hear their muffled voices, the occasional clink of glasses, and Magnolia's increasingly frustrated sighs. Fox and I had a pre-arranged playlist of mood music ready. First up, "Before He Cheats," by Carrie Underwood, played just loud enough to be audible through the wall, but not so loud as to be overtly aggressive. Then, a little "Jolene" by Dolly Parton. We followed it up with "Irreplaceable" by Beyoncé. It was subtle, it was pointed, and it was driving them absolutely bonkers. We could hear Lincoln trying to shush Magnolia, then her indignant whispers. "She's doing this on purpose, Lincoln. This is so toxic." I chuckled, leaning against the wall. "Oh, honey, you haven't seen toxic yet. This is just the appetizer." Fox, meanwhile, was meticulously arranging a charcuterie board we'd ordered from room service. He mused, "I always found it fascinating how people convince themselves they're the exception, that their actions won't have consequences." He popped a piece of artisanal cheese into his mouth, looking utterly unbothered. His calm demeanor was a perfect foil to my simmering intensity, and it was surprisingly effective in rattling our neighbors. The next morning, we decided to escalate. We booked a private couples massage at the resort spa. The same spa I knew, where Magnolia had booked a couples rejuvenation package with Lincoln. We arrived just as they were checking in, looking flustered. Magnolia, ever the influencer, was trying to get a good angle for a selfie with the spa's waterfall feature. "Lincoln, stand here. It's giving wellness oasis," she instructed. "Oh, Delilah! Fox!" Lincoln exclaimed, his voice strained. "Fancy meeting you here, again." "Isn't it, though?" I said, flashing my most dazzlingly fake smile. "We heard this place was divine. Perfect for a little stress relief." I glanced pointedly at Lincoln, whose neck seemed to be getting tighter by the second. Fox, with a mischievous glint in his eye, put an arm around my waist, pulling me closer. "Indeed," he said smoothly. "Delilah's been under a lot of pressure lately. It's good to unwind." The implication hung heavy in the air. "Pressure from you, Lincoln." As we were led to our massage room, which, by a stroke of pure, unadulterated luck, and another generous tip, was right next to theirs, I heard Magnolia whisper furiously, "This is insane, Lincoln. They're following us. This is harassment." Lincoln's muffled reply was something about coincidence and staying calm. Oh, he was calm, all right, like a volcano about to blow. Inside our room, Fox looked at me. "You know, I think they're starting to get the message." "Message received, loud and clear," I agreed. "But the delivery is far from complete." We spent the next hour enjoying our massages, making sure to laugh a little too loudly, to comment on how relaxed we felt, and to generally create a cheerful, carefree atmosphere that I knew was pure torture for them. Through the wall, I could hear Magnolia's increasingly agitated whispers, punctuated by Lincoln's exasperated sighs. It was beautiful music to my ears. This wasn't just about making them uncomfortable. It was about making them question everything, making them feel the suffocating presence of their own deceit. And we were just getting started. That evening, the tension in the air was thicker than the resort's complimentary fudge. Lincoln and Magnolia had retreated to their room, presumably to strategize or, more likely, to engage in a full-blown argument. Fox and I were enjoying a quiet dinner on our balcony, the gentle lapping of the waves a stark contrast to the storm brewing next door. We could hear snippets of their conversation, Magnolia's voice rising in indignation, Lincoln's trying to placate her with increasingly desperate reassurances. It was the predictable unraveling of a relationship built on sand. "He's trying to gaslight her," I observed, swirling the ice in my glass. "Classic Lincoln. Make her feel like she's the crazy one for noticing the obvious." Fox grunted in agreement. "Magnolia's not exactly a bastion of self-awareness, but even she can tell when she's being played." He paused, then looked at me, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, Delilah, I've been doing some digging of my own, about Lincoln." My interest was immediately piqued. "Oh? Do tell. Did you find his secret lair where he plots world domination and bad hair days?" Fox chuckled, a dry, low sound. "Worse. I found his financial statements. And a few interesting emails." He pulled out his phone, a sleek, minimalist device that probably cost more than my entire design budget. Magnolia always talked about Lincoln being financially stable, a provider. Turns out he's more like a house of cards built on a credit line. He showed me a series of documents. Lincoln, the high-flying executive, was apparently living well beyond his means. His company stock options were underwater, his investments were speculative at best, and he had a significant amount of undisclosed debt. Even worse, Fox had uncovered an email chain between Lincoln and a colleague discussing a potential restructuring at his company, which sounded an awful lot like a euphemism for layoffs, with Lincoln possibly on the chopping block. "He's been funneling money into a separate account, ostensibly for future investments," Fox explained. "But it looks more like a slush fund he's been dipping into to maintain his lifestyle and probably to impress Magnolia." This was the plot twist I didn't see coming. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about a house of financial cards, ready to collapse. Lincoln wasn't just a cheater. He was a financial liability. And Magnolia, the wellness influencer who preached about abundance, was about to find out her abundance was built on quicksand. This changed everything. My initial plan was to expose their affair, to publicly humiliate them. But this was a whole new level of poetic justice. This wasn't just about his heart. It was about his wallet, his reputation, his entire carefully constructed facade. "So, he's not just a philanderer," I mused, a slow, predatory smile spreading across my face. "He's a financial ticking time bomb, and he's about to drag Magnolia down with him." "Precisely," Fox confirmed. "He's been painting a picture of success to her, probably promising her a life of luxury she's accustomed to. If she knew the truth, Her positive vibes would evaporate faster than a drop of water on a hot skillet. "And my divorce settlement?" I asked, suddenly more concerned about the practicalities. "That's where it gets interesting," Fox said. "If he's hiding assets, or if his financial situation is as precarious as it looks, you're entitled to a much larger share, especially if he's been using marital funds to support his affair or hide debt. We need to expose this, not just for revenge, but for your financial security." This was where my underestimated intelligence came into play. People always saw me as the pretty designer, the one who made things look good. They didn't see the meticulous planning, the strategic thinking, the ruthless efficiency required to run a successful business. Lincoln certainly didn't. He thought I was just the wife who picked out throw pillows. He was about to learn that I was also the one who could throw a legal hand grenade. "Okay, Fox," I said, my voice firm. "New plan. We still proceed with the public humiliation. That's the appetizer. But the main course? The main course is going to be a full financial audit. And we're going to make sure Magnolia gets a front row seat to the collapse of her financially stable dream man." Fox's eyes gleamed. "I like it. How do we do it?" "We start by making sure they can't escape us," I said, a mischievous glint in my eye. "Tomorrow we're going to make their lives a living hell, resort style. We'll ensure they're desperate enough to want to leave, but trapped enough that they can't." Our preparation began. Fox, with his tech wizardry, managed to subtly, accidentally disable their digital room key access for a few hours, forcing them to go to the front desk multiple times. He also found a way to accidentally redirect their room service orders to our suite. A delicious irony, eating their expensive breakfast while listening to their frustrated calls to the concierge. I, meanwhile, used my interior design connections to discreetly arrange for a special delivery to their room. A large framed print of a particularly unflattering photo of Lincoln and Magnolia, taken by a paparazzi-style photographer I'd hired to follow them around the resort, with the caption, "True Love's First Kiss," or just a really bad decision. It was going to be delivered during their romantic sunset dinner reservation. The beauty of this new plan was its multi-layered approach. It wasn't just about emotional damage, it was about systemic disruption. We weren't just making them uncomfortable, we were dismantling their entire illusion. We were setting the stage for a grand finale that would hit Lincoln where it hurt the most, his pride and his bank account. And Magnolia would get a harsh dose of reality, realizing that her manifested abundance was about to manifest a whole lot of debt and a very public breakup. "You know," Fox said, leaning back in his chair, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips, "I always thought I was good at playing the long game. But you, Delilah Frost, you're in a league of your own." "Honey," I replied, raising my glass, "when you've spent 12 years perfecting the art of passive-aggressive holiday decorations, you learn a thing or two about strategic placement. And right now, Lincoln and Magnolia are perfectly placed for a spectacular fall." The next day was a symphony of orchestrated chaos. Every time they tried to relax by the pool, a group of random guests, actually, some friendly resort staff I'd bribed, would start a loud, raucous game of volleyball right next to them. Their private cabana was accidentally double-booked, forcing them to sit in the general seating. Their dinner reservations were mysteriously canceled. Each small inconvenience chipped away at their composure, making them increasingly agitated. Magnolia's Instagram stories, once filled with glowing reviews, now showed her looking visibly stressed, trying to filter out the chaos around her. It was pure, unadulterated schadenfreude. By late afternoon, I overheard Lincoln on the phone, his voice tight with frustration. "I don't care what it costs. Just get us on the next flight out of here. This place is a nightmare." He was trying to escape, but I had one more trick up my sleeve, thanks to Fox's tech skills. He'd managed to accidentally flag their names in the resort system, causing a technical glitch that made it impossible for them to book any flights or change their hotel reservations without a manager's override, and the manager was mysteriously unavailable until tomorrow morning. They were trapped, and the stage was set for the grand unveiling. "They're officially at their breaking point," I told Fox, a triumphant smile on my face. "Tomorrow, we give them the full show. The anticipation was palpable, a delicious hum in the air. This wasn't just revenge, it was an art form, and the canvas was their crumbling delusion. The morning of the grand finale dawned bright and deceptively peaceful. Lincoln and Magnolia, looking haggard and utterly defeated, were finally granted an audience with the resort manager. They were desperate to leave, their romantic getaway having devolved into a psychological torture chamber. Fox and I, freshly showered and looking annoyingly refreshed, made sure to be in the lobby, sipping coffee and pretending to read the resort's daily activities schedule. We were strategically positioned near the manager's office, our ears perked for the inevitable drama. "This entire trip has been a disaster," I heard Magnolia exclaim, her voice shrill enough to shatter glass. "We demand a full refund and immediate flights out." The manager, a stoic woman named Ms. Jenkins, maintained a calm, professional demeanor. "I understand your frustration, Ms. Huxley, Mr. Draven. However, there seems to be a rather unique situation regarding your booking." This was our cue. Fox subtly activated a small, discreet device in his pocket. It was a directional microphone, expertly disguised, designed to pick up conversations from a short distance and broadcast them, just barely, to the lobby's ambient music system. The volume was low, almost imperceptible, but enough for anyone paying attention to catch snippets. "Unique situation?" Lincoln scoffed, his voice dripping with entitlement. "We simply want to leave this hellhole." "Well," Ms. Jenkins began, "it appears your reservation was made under a rather unusual set of circumstances, and we've also received some rather concerning reports." Just then, a resort employee, a young man I'd tipped handsomely, wheeled a cart directly past the manager's office. On it, prominently displayed, was the framed photo I'd commissioned. Lincoln and Magnolia, caught mid-smooch, looking utterly ridiculous, with the caption, "True Love's First Kiss," or just a really bad decision. The employee accidentally paused the cart right in front of the office door, giving everyone in the lobby a clear view. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Magnolia shrieked, "What is that? Lincoln, what is going on?" Lincoln's face was a masterpiece of crimson fury and utter mortification. That's a mistake. That's not us." "Oh, really?" I said, stepping forward, a picture of innocent concern. "Because it certainly looks like you two. And that photo's been circulating around the resort all morning. People are calling it the Caribbean catastrophe." Fox, ever the calm, collected one, added, "It's quite the viral sensation, actually. Someone even started a hashtag, Draven Huxley Disaster." The color drained from Magnolia's face. Her influencer career, built on curated perfection, was about to implode. She turned on Lincoln, her voice a furious whisper. "You told me no one would find out. You promised this was our secret." Lincoln, cornered, stammered, I didn't know she'd follow us. This is Delilah's doing. She's crazy. Crazy," I scoffed, a single, perfectly aimed eyebrow arching. Or just a woman who doesn't appreciate her husband using her credit card to fund his midlife crisis with a wellness guru. That's when Fox stepped in, his voice cutting through the rising chaos. "Speaking of finances, Lincoln, I've been looking into your investments and your company's restructuring plans. It seems your financial stability is about as real as Magnolia's filtered selfies." He then, with the casual ease of someone checking the weather, pulled out his phone and projected a few key documents onto a nearby digital display screen, the kind used for resort announcements. It showed snippets of Lincoln's hidden debt, the plummeting stock options, and the internal email about the impending layoffs. The numbers were stark, undeniable, and utterly devastating. The lobby fell silent. Magnolia stared at the screen, her mouth agape. Her financially stable dream man was a fraud. "What is this, Lincoln?" Magnolia whispered, her voice devoid of its usual perkiness. "You told me you were set. You told me we could build an empire." Lincoln looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. It's a misunderstanding. Fox, you can't just expose my private information." "Oh, I can," Fox replied, his voice dangerously calm. especially when that private information directly impacts my fiancé's future and potentially the marital assets of your soon-to-be ex-wife. I believe the term is due diligence. The manager, Ms. Jenkins, cleared her throat. Mr. Draven, Ms. Huxley, I'm afraid given these revelations and the rather public nature of your situation, we can no longer accommodate your stay. We have a reputation to uphold. Your flights have been rebooked for this afternoon, economy class, and there will be no refund. Magnolia let out a choked sob. Economy? But my brand. My followers expect luxury. Your brand, darling, I interjected sweetly, is about to get a very authentic dose of reality. Consider it a detox from all the curated perfection. The scene that followed was pure, unadulterated chaos. Magnolia, realizing her sugar daddy was actually a financial sinkhole, started screaming at Lincoln, accusing him of lying, of ruining her life, of being a toxic energy vampire. Lincoln, in turn, tried to deflect. Blame me, blame Fox, blame the resort. It was a spectacular implosion, a train wreck in slow motion, and everyone in the lobby had a front row seat. People were openly filming on their phones, the hashtag #Draven-Huxley disaster already trending locally. As they were unceremoniously escorted out, their luggage following behind them, Magnolia shot me a look of pure, venomous hatred. You'll regret this, Delilah, she spat. I just smiled, a genuine, satisfied smile this time. Oh, honey, the only thing I regret is not bringing more popcorn. Lincoln, defeated and humiliated, wouldn't even look at me. He was a broken man, his carefully constructed world shattered into a million pieces. His corporate reputation, his financial standing, his soulmate, all gone, exposed in the harsh light of a Caribbean morning. Fox leaned over, a triumphant glint in his eyes. Well, that was cathartic and surprisingly efficient. Indeed, I agreed, though I think the final twist is yet to come. I have a feeling Magnolia will be sending Lincoln a very large invoice for emotional damages once she's done counting her Instagram followers. We watched them go, two figures of misery, their heads bowed, their dreams of a romantic escape utterly annihilated. The justice was poetic, the revenge epic, and the satisfaction for me was absolute. This wasn't just about getting even. It was about reclaiming my narrative, about showing the world that some women don't just get mad, they get strategic. And sometimes the best way to move on is to make sure your ex-husband's new life is a bigger mess than the one he left behind. After the dust settled, or rather, after Lincoln and Magnolia were unceremoniously ushered into a taxi, the lobby slowly returned to its usual hum of vacationers. Fox and I ordered another round of drinks, a celebratory toast to a job exceptionally well done. The resort manager, Ms. Jenkins, approached our table, a subtle smile playing on her lips. Ms. Frost, Mr. Callahan, she began. I must say that was quite the spectacle, and remarkably well orchestrated. Your technical glitches were certainly effective. She winked, then handed me a small, discreet envelope. A little something from the house, for your troubles, and a complimentary upgrade to our presidential suite, for the remainder of your actual vacation. I raised an eyebrow at Fox. Well, look at that. Karma really does have good customer service. He just chuckled, shaking his head. The next few days were pure bliss. We spent them enjoying the presidential suite, the kind of luxury Lincoln could only dream of affording now. We laughed, we relaxed, and we talked. Really talked. Fox was surprisingly insightful, his cynicism a perfect match for my sarcasm. We discovered a shared love for obscure documentaries, dry wit, and a mutual disdain for people who take themselves too seriously. He was, in a word, refreshing. The fallout from the Draven-Huxley disaster was swift and brutal. Magnolia's carefully curated online persona crumbled. Her wellness brand was now synonymous with homewrecker and gold digger. Her follower count plummeted faster than Lincoln's stock options. Lincoln, on the other hand, faced a different kind of reckoning. The financial irregularities Fox exposed, combined with the public humiliation, led to his immediate termination from his executive position. His carefully cultivated image of success was shattered. He was facing a messy divorce, significant debt, and the very real prospect of having to move out of our Alpharetta mansion. Poetic justice, indeed. My divorce from Lincoln was surprisingly smooth, largely thanks to the evidence Fox had uncovered. My lawyer had a field day with the financial discrepancies and the public nature of his affair. I walked away with a fair settlement, the house, and a renewed sense of self-worth. Lincoln, on the other hand, was left with a mountain of debt and a reputation in tatters. He tried to blame me, of course, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. The world had seen his true colors, and they weren't exactly executive suite material. Magnolia, in a desperate attempt to salvage her career, tried to pivot to a survivor narrative, but it was too little, too late. Her authentic journey was just another performance, and the audience had already left. She even tried to sue Lincoln for emotional distress, which, honestly, was a move I almost admired for its sheer audacity. Almost. As for Fox and me, we didn't exactly ride off into the sunset, hand in hand, like a cheesy rom-com. We were two people who had been betrayed, who had found common ground in a shared mission of vengeance, and who had discovered a surprising camaraderie in the process. We continued to talk, to meet for coffee, to share cynical observations about the world. There was an undeniable spark, a mutual respect for each other's intelligence and resilience. We were both a little broken, a little jaded, but also a lot wiser. You know, I told Fox one evening back in Atlanta, sipping wine on my newly redecorated patio, Lincoln's old study, now my fabulous new design studio, I used to think that happily ever after meant finding your Prince Charming and living in a perfect suburban bubble. Turns out it means kicking your toxic husband to the curb, exposing his financial fraud, and finding a co-conspirator who appreciates a good revenge plot. Fox raised his glass, a wry smile on his face. To co-conspirators, may our enemies always book the room next door. The experience had taught me a lot. It taught me that sometimes the best way to heal is to take control of your narrative. It taught me that being underestimated can be your greatest weapon. And it taught me that while revenge might be a dish best served cold, it's even better when served with a side of witty banter and a perfectly executed plan. My life wasn't a tragedy. It was a dark comedy, and I was finally writing my own ending. And let me tell you, it was a damn good read.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.